Buckle up, because what you're about to hear will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about solving mysteries. Some of the craziest real-life mysteries weren't solved by detectives, but by Reddit, and the wild part? Some of these Reddit sleuths cracked cases that cops couldn't touch for decades. It sounds insane, but once you dive in, you realize the internet, S&T, just a place for memes and cat videos. A place where millions of sharp eyes, curious minds, and obsessive researchers come together like a digital detective squad. So let's jump straight into this countdown of mind-blowing cases Reddit solved, starting with number 10, #10. The missing dad mystery. Imagine you re-scrolling through Reddit late at night and you stumble on a heartbreaking post. A user searching for their father. A man who vanished decades ago. No closure, no trace, just a hole in the family story. The way they described it was raw, like carrying an open wound for years. The post wasn't polished or dressed up. It was more like a cry into the void. And instead of silence, Reddit answered back. The user had very little to go on. It's an old name, a vague location, maybe a blurry memory of where he might have lived. Not exactly the kind of details you can plug into Google and get answers, but here's where the magic of Reddit comes in. Someone in the comments recognized a detail and unusual last name that matched public records in a totally different state. Another person dug through newspaper archives and linked an article about a man who had once been reported missing in that exact time frame. Then another user chimed in, cross-referencing census data and voter registration records. Piece by piece, this digital puzzle started to form an actual picture. Reading through the thread felt like watching an army of strangers suddenly transform into volunteer detectives. You had tech-savvy Redditors pulling up old property deeds, genealogy buffs tracing family trees, and local users offering to swing by libraries to check microfilm records. One person even joked, "This subreddit is basically the Avengers for lost people," and everyone upvoted it because it felt so true. The community had momentum, and that momentum carried the investigation further than anyone thought possible. What started as a desperate post from one person turned into a collective hunt. Days went by, and the updates started rolling in. Someone found a yearbook photo that matched the description. Another user dug up a military record that lined up with his age and background. And then came the breakthrough. An obituary mentioning the exact name of the man, with surviving relatives listed. It wasn't the Hollywood ending the family had dreamed of. The father had passed away years earlier, but for the first time, there was closure. The void wasn't endless anymore. There was a story, a history, and a place to grieve properly. The user's reaction was unforgettable. They wrote a follow-up saying, "For years, I wondered if he just didn't want me. Now, I know the truth, and even though it hurts, I finally feel at peace." That line hit hard because it showed the real weight behind these internet sleuthing victories. It's not about racking up karma points. It's about giving people answers to questions that haunt them. One Redditor summed it up perfectly with a comment, "This is why I love this place. Sometimes we argue about pineapple on pizza, and sometimes we help someone find their dad. That mix of humor and humanity is what keeps people glued to stories like these." What's fascinating here is the psychology. In the real world, if you asked your local community for help finding a missing parent, you might get a few leads, maybe some sympathy. But on Reddit, you've got access to a massive hive mind. Thousands of people with unique skills, memories, and resources all converging on one problem. It's like crowdsourcing closure. And the fact that strangers cared enough to invest hours of their lives into solving someone else's pain, that something detectives with cold caseloads and limited resources could never replicate. It's humanity amplified by technology. And while the case didn't bring a reunion, it brought something just as valuable. The end of uncertainty. The mystery of the missing dad didn't fade into another forgotten thread, became one of those moments where Reddit proved it could be more than just a website. It could be a place where digital strangers turned into saviors. Number 9, the creepy attic photograph. Picture this. You've just moved into an old American house, the kind with creaky floorboards and a draft that makes doors slam at night. You're re-cleaning out the attic when your flashlight beam catches a dusty old box wedged in the corner. Inside, you find a stack of photographs. Most are harmless family portraits, old vacation snapshots, but then you pull out one that makes your skin crawl. It's a black and white picture of a child, staring dead into the camera, eyes wide, expression frozen somewhere between fear and emptiness. And here's the kicker. The back of the photo has a date from over 50 years ago, but no names, no notes. Just this eerie little face like it's been waiting for someone to find it. Creeped out, the homeowner snaps a picture and posts it on Reddit with the caption, "Found this in my attic." Should I be worried? Within minutes, the comments explode. Some people went full horror mode. "Congrats, you just unleashed a ghost." Another said, "Burn the house down and move." And of course, someone had to add, "This is literally how every horror movie starts. Good luck." The thread became half investigation, half comedy show, but beneath the jokes, serious sleuths got to work. Reddit, being Reddit, users didn't just stop at ghost jokes. Some zoomed in on the photo's background and noticed the wallpaper pattern, which looked oddly specific to Midwestern American homes in the 1960s. Others analyzed the child's clothing style, pointing out details that matched Sears catalogs from the same decade. One particularly sharp-eyed commenter connected the type of photographic paper used Kodak's distinctive stamp from that era. Suddenly, the eerie ghost photo started turning into a solvable riddle. Then things got even more fascinating. A local historian chimed in, saying the photo looked strikingly similar to pictures taken in orphanages around the Midwest during that time period. They even linked to a public archive of foster home records, which had eerily similar portrait skids lined up, photographed for identification rather than memory, reframed the entire tone of the mystery. What started as a creepy attic ghost story began looking like a forgotten slice of real history. A photograph of a child whose story had been swallowed by time. The thread blew up even more. One user said Reddit went from Ghostbusters to genealogists in record time. Another joked, "Plot twist. The kid is probably alive and just really bad at taking photos." But behind the humor, there was a collective sense of respect. That photo wasn't just creepy anymore, it was a window into the struggles of children who grew up in a system that didn't value memories, only paperwork. And suddenly, instead of shivers, people felt empathy. The most astonishing part. A Redditor who specialized in genealogy took it further, cross-referencing orphanage rosters with public census data. Weeks later, they tracked down records that matched the time frame and location. While the exact child wasn't identified, the photo was strongly linked to a network of orphanages that closed in the 1970s. What had begun as nightmare fuel in someone's attic turned into a piece of lost history rediscovered by the internet. The community reframed fear into compassion, turning a potential ghost story into a reminder of forgotten children whose names might never be known. What makes this case unforgettable is the roller coaster of emotions. At first, it's the internet doing what it does best, joking, memeing, making the situation both lighter and scarier at the same time. But then it pivots, showing the incredible depth of humanity that surfaces when thousands of people decide to care. The creepy attic photograph stopped being creepy once context filled the silence. That's the power of Reddit. It can transform chills into empathy, suspicion into knowledge, and a haunting into history. And that's just the beginning. Number 8, the mystery of the vanishing hotel room. This one reads like a ghost story that somehow crossed into real life, and Reddit couldn't resist digging into it. Right. The tale goes back more than 100 years. A young woman traveled with her mother to Paris for the exposition in 1910. They checked into a hotel, the kind with velvet curtains, creaky floors, and the heavy scent of cigars in the lobby. But then, according to the story, something unthinkable happened. The mother fell ill, the daughter was sent out to fetch medicine, and when she returned, the hotel staff denied her mother had ever existed. The room she described was different. The bed linens didn't match. The wallpaper had changed. Terrified, she begged them to tell her where her mother had gone, but everyone insisted she had checked in alone. No trace, no belongings, no name on the ledger. Just like that, the woman's mother had been erased. For decades, this story circulated as an unsolved mystery. Was it a cover-up? A murder the hotel wanted hidden during the busy exposition? Or was it supernatural, an entire person swallowed by time? Books, magazines, and eventually TV shows retold the legend, each time adding more chills. Then Reddit got a hold of it. In subreddits like r Unresolved Masties and r Escastorians, users started pulling the story apart. Some pointed out inconsistencies in the earliest published versions, tracing it back to a short story written in the late 19th century that was likely fictional. Others examined the psychology behind it. Why did this particular tale survive so long? One Redditor commented, "This is basically the Mandela effect before the internet. People wanted to believe reality could glitch." That line stuck because it reframed the mystery not as a crime, but as a cultural mirror. Another Redditor dug into French archives and confirmed that while there were rumors of tourists vanishing in Paris, there was no documented police report matching this case. Instead, the story appeared in a collection of urban legends published in the 1920s. From there, newspapers dramatized it, adding Parisian flair and details about the world's fair to make it stick in people's minds. As one historian on Reddit explained, it's less about one missing woman, more about how travelers in the 1900s feared being isolated in a foreign city, where no one spoke their language. That explanation hit hard because it took the supernatural out of the story and replaced it with something scarier: human vulnerability. What made the thread unforgettable wasn't just debunking the myth, but the way Redditors interacted. Some still leaned into the horror, posting comments like, "I don't care if it's fake. If a hotel clerk ever tells me my mom doesn't exist, I'm checking out immediately." Others joked, "Plot twist. She just mixed up the floor because Paris hotels are confusing." The mix of wit and research is classic Reddit. Showed how thousands of people could transform an old ghost story into a conversation about history, psychology, and collective fear. The end. The mystery wasn't solved by proving where the mother went, it was solved by showing that she never existed in the first place, at least outside of imagination. #7. The Internet Piano Mystery. Fast forward to the internet age, where mysteries can spark overnight from a single video upload. One day, a strange clip surfaced on YouTube, a lone piano sitting in the middle of the woods. The camera panned slowly, showing the instrument battered by weather, but still upright, keys broken, strings exposed. The eerie silence made it feel like the opening shot of a horror movie. Who left a piano here? Why? And what story did it hide? The video went viral, and Reddit pounced on it like a pack of digital detectives. At first, the theories were pure Reddit gold. Some people swore it was the scene of a crime, that maybe a body was hidden inside the piano. Others joked it was a marketing stunt for a new Netflix thriller. One comment that got thousands of upvotes simply read, "Somewhere, a ghost pianist is really mad." But then the serious sleuths arrived. Users began frame-by-frame analysis of the video, noting the type of woodlands, the direction of the light, even the moss growing at the piano's base. Someone suggested it looked like upstate New York. Another matched the tree line to Google Earth. Within hours, Redditors had narrowed the piano's location to a state park. Then came the breakthrough. A local Redditor recognized the spot and posted GPS coordinates. They explained that the piano wasn't dumped by criminals at all. It had been part of an art installation years earlier. A performance artist had dragged the instrument into the woods as a statement about the intersection of nature and culture. When the exhibit ended, no one bothered to move it, so the piano slowly decayed into legend. What had been a creepy viral video turned out to be abandoned art. The thread became a masterclass in how the internet solves puzzles. Instead of a detective knocking on doors, you had thousands of people knocking on each other's brains. Musicians chimed in to identify the brand of the piano. Environmentalists explained how fast wood breaks down in damp conditions. Local hikers uploaded their own photos, confirming the exact tree where the piano leaned. One user quipped, "Reddit solved this faster than my landlord fixes a leaky faucet." Humor like that kept the energy high, while the collective investigation moved forward. What struck people was the transformation of the mood. At first, it was eerie, almost sinister. Then, as the truth came out, it became whimsical. The piano wasn't a coffin for secrets, but a forgotten piece of creativity blending with the forest. Instead of chills, the thread left readers with wonder about art, about nature, about how something so ordinary could ignite such wild imaginations. And that's the essence of Reddit's sleuthing power. It takes something strange and makes it human, stripping away the fear while preserving the fascination. #6. The Case of the Identical Strangers on a Bus. It all started with a faded photograph that no one could explain. A Reddit user shared an old black and white snapshot they found in their grandmother's keepsakes. It was the kind of photo you'd expect grandma seated on a city bus in the 1970s. Hair done up, handbag on her lap, the kind of image families in America save to remember ordinary days. But in the background of that photo was a man whose face nearly knocked the whole family backward. He looked exactly like the poster's grandfather. Same eyes, same square jaw, even the same tie pattern they remembered him wearing to church. The only problem? The time the photo was taken, Grandpa was supposedly living several states away. According to family lore, he had never been to that city. So how could he be sitting there, a ghost in the corner of a bus? When the image hit Reddit, it blew up like wildfire. People love a good doppelganger story, and this one had all the right ingredients: family drama, mystery, and that eerie sense that reality itself might be glitching. Redditors began dissecting the photo like CSI investigators. They zoomed in on pixels, adjusted brightness, and posted side-by-side comparisons with confirmed pictures of the grandfather. One top comment read, "If that's not your grandpa, then he had a twin somewhere who was raiding his closet." Another chimed in, "This is why time travelers shouldn't take public transportation." The mix of jokes and serious sleuthing kept thousands glued to the thread, but then the deeper digging began. One user noticed the bus number etched faintly in the corner of the window. A transportation enthusiast tracked it down, cross-referencing schedules from that decade, and pinpointed the exact route. Another Redditor, whose hobby was genealogy, started pulling employment records and union documents. Shockingly, they discovered that the grandfather's company sometimes sent workers to training programs in that very city. Suddenly, the impossible started looking plausible. Maybe Grandpa wasn't a time traveler or a clone. Maybe he had taken a work trip he'd never mentioned. That revelation opened a new layer of debate. Some family members who followed the thread admitted it was possible Grandpa had secrets. Was he hiding something innocent, like extra shifts or job training? Or was there a darker explanation, like an affair or a second life? Reddit couldn't answer those personal questions. But the mystery shifted from supernatural speculation to the complexity of family histories. As one commenter wisely said, "Sometimes the real mystery I send T the photo at S, the version of people we think we know." That hit home for a lot of readers because who hasn't T found out years later that a parent or grandparent had layers of their life tucked away? For Americans especially, this story resonated. Families often cling to tidy narratives about their pasts, but photographs, documents, and now Reddit threads remind us that our ancestors were complicated. The bus photo became a symbol of that. A random moment captured on film exposed the possibility that the family patriarch had lived a chapter nobody knew. It wasn't proof of a ghost, but it was proof of how a single image can ripple through generations. And on Reddit, thousands of strangers leaned in. It's not because they knew the family, but because they knew the feeling, that chilling, fascinating sensation of questioning the past. Number 5, the mystery of the underground hums. It all started with a sound no one could explain. A Reddit user posted in the middle of the night, "Does anyone else hear this constant low hum? It's not my fridge, not traffic, not anything I can find. It feels like the earth itself is moaning." Dozens of people replied almost instantly, many saying they heard the same thing in their own towns. And just like that, Reddit discovered it was sitting on top of one of the strangest modern mysteries: the hum. Imagine lying in bed in small town, America, and hearing a deep vibration that never stops. It isn't loud, but it's persistent, like a diesel engine idling somewhere far off. For some people, it causes headaches. For others, it triggers anxiety. One Redditor described it as living next door to an invisible generator. Another joked, "This is the world's most annoying mixtape on repeat." The humor helped, but underneath it was genuine unease. People weren't just annoyed, they were scared they might be losing their minds. Reddit threads exploded with theories. Aliens, government experiments, secret underground drilling. The comments section looked like a brainstorming session for a sci-fi movie. One user wrote, "If I disappear tomorrow, tell my mom the hum got me." That gallows humor earned thousands of upvotes because it captured exactly how creepy the whole thing felt. But then, as always, Reddit's hive mind shifted gears from jokes to investigation. Acoustics experts appeared in the threads, explaining how low-frequency sounds can travel for miles, bouncing off hills and buildings in bizarre ways. Engineers dug up maps of pipelines and factories, connecting possible industrial causes. Some sleuths pulled weather records, arguing that wind patterns could amplify power line vibrations. Musicians even recorded the hum with microphones and compared waveforms across different towns. One fascinating discovery was that not everyone could hear it. Some users said it was unbearable, while others in the same area swore there was nothing. A neuroscientist stepped in and explained how human ears vary in sensitivity to low frequencies. So the hum might literally exist for some and not for others. That revelation spooked people even more, because what's scarier than a sound only half the town can hear? Reddit became part support group, part research lab. Users shared coping mechanisms, white noise machines, earplugs, even playing fans at night. One person wrote, "My husband thought I was going crazy until I showed him this thread. Now he hears it too, and it's driving us both nuts." That kind of everyday American frustration, like complaining to a neighbor about noise, but doing it on a global scale, made the thread feel real and relatable. People weren't just swapping theories, they were finding comfort in not being alone. Eventually, many threads concluded the hums were tied to industrial equipment, combined with unique geography. A steel mill here, a pipeline there, the perfect storm to generate low-frequency vibrations. But even when the science made sense, the mystery never fully died. The hum remains unsolved in many areas, with new Reddit posts popping up every year. And for some, knowing the possible cause wasn't enough to ease the dread. As one user put it, "I can live with ghosts. But a noise inside my head that won't shut up, that's worse." What made the hum mystery unforgettable wasn't just the sound, it was the way Reddit handled it. Humor mixed with science, skepticism with empathy. Strangers united by an invisible vibration found each other in the comments sections and realized they weren't crazy. They were part of something bigger, something unexplained. While Reddit couldn't silence the Earth's groan, it did something almost as valuable. It gave people answers, support, and the realization that the weirdest mysteries sometimes live right under our noses or in our ears. Number 4, the cryptic number station. It all began with a late night Reddit post from a user who had been tinkering with a shortwave radio. They weren't expecting much, maybe a few foreign broadcasts, some static, the usual background noise. But instead, they stumbled on a chilling signal, a monotone voice reciting strings of numbers, 7, 4, 3, 9, 2. The cadence was flat, mechanical, almost inhuman. The Redditor recorded a snippet and uploaded it with the caption, "What the hell did I just find?" Within hours, Reddit lit up like a Christmas tree. To anyone unfamiliar, it sounded like a horror movie soundtrack. It's the kind of thing you'd expect to hear before the lights flicker out. Some users immediately leaned into the creep factor. One joked, "Congrats, you've just tuned into the apocalypse." Another said, "Don't keep listening, you're activating sleeper agents." But mixed with the humor came genuine curiosity. This wasn't just static, it was too structured. And if there's one thing Reddit can't resist, it's structure that demands decoding. Experts and amateurs alike flocked to the thread. Radio enthusiasts explained that these broadcasts were eerily similar to Cold War number stations, mysterious transmissions used by intelligence agencies to communicate with field operatives. They were uncrackable ciphers, spoken or broadcast in endless strings of numbers that could only be decoded with a one-time pad known to the spy. To most of the world, they were nonsense. To one person in a faraway country, they could be instructions. Reddit sleuths went further. Some tracked the frequency, identifying it as one historically associated with Eastern European transmissions. Others pulled old records from shortwave monitoring communities, confirming that the signal wasn't new, it had been operating for decades. One user wrote, "Imagine how many spies checked their watches when this broadcast came on." Another added, "So basically you found the Cold War's version of a text message." The thread became part history lesson, part spy thriller. What made this case so gripping was the atmosphere Reddit created around it. People shared stories of discovering number stations late at night, describing the eerie isolation of hearing a robotic voice count endlessly in the dark. Americans reading the thread compared it to growing up near military bases, hearing strange frequencies bleed into car radios. The comments turned into a campfire of shared ghost stories, except this ghost was real. The United States and other countries had declassified some number station use, admitting they were part of espionage communication. In the end, Reddit didn't crack the code. The whole point of a one-time pad is that you can but what they solved was the mystery of what the poster had found. It wasn't aliens, It wasn't the supernatural, it was a living fossil from the age of spies and double agents. And the fact that it was still running in the 21st century gave everyone chills. As one Redditor put it, somewhere out there, a human being is still waiting for these numbers. That's the scariest part. Number 3, the case of the Craigslist roommate. It started innocently, like so many nightmare stories do. A Reddit user shared their experience of finding a new roommate through Craigslist, something countless Americans have done in cities where rent is sky high. At first, the guy seemed normal, quiet, paid rent on time, mostly kept to himself. But then one day, he vanished, just gone. Rent money unpaid, no goodbye, no trace. And in the empty room he left behind, the poster found something unnerving. Stacks of papers filled with strange notes, receipts from multiple states, and a notebook full of scribbled names and addresses. The thread title was simple: "My roommate disappeared. What did I just find?" Redditors swarmed. Theories flew faster than popcorn in a movie theater. Some insisted it was evidence of criminal activity. "You're living with a con man," one wrote. Another said, "Dude's definitely a spy," or worse. The creep factor was through the roof, especially when the poster uploaded pictures of the notebook. The handwriting was frantic, lines drawn between names like a conspiracy theorist's corkboard. At first, the thread felt like pure horror. Was this roommate planning something sinister? Was the poster in danger? People half-joked, "Check your locks op, he's coming back for those notes." But then, as always, the hive mind started digging. Some Redditors ran the names through public databases, discovering that many matched small claims court records. Others noticed patterns in the receipts. They were all from cheap motels, gas stations, and fast food joints strung along interstate highways. One sharp-eyed user pieced it together. The roommate was a spy or a murderer. He was a drifter running low-level scams across state lines. The notebook, far from a murder plan, was basically a ledger of debts, hotel stays, and hustles. He had been bouncing between towns, living off quick cash, and using Craigslist to secure temporary housing before skipping out. Reddit collectively exhaled, but the relief was mixed with disgust. As one comment put it, "Not a serial killer, just a serial moocher." Another quipped, "Honestly, I'd prefer the spy story, it's less depressing." What made this thread unforgettable was how it blended fear, humor, and reality. Thousands of people had projected their darkest fears onto those notebooks, only to be met with something more mundane, yet equally unsettling. The reality of hidden lives lived on society's edges. For many Americans, it hit close to home. Everyone knows someone who's had a shady roommate, or a rental situation that went sideways. Reddit gave them not just answers, but a sense of solidarity. The poster wasn't alone in their shock. An entire community had their back, analyzing and joking their way through the fear. The end. Craigslist roommate mystery wasn't about a murder or espionage. It was about how thin the line can be between ordinary life and the bizarre undercurrents that flow just beneath it. And as the top comment summed up, Reddit may not pay your rent, but at least it can explain why your roommate vanished. Number 2, the Lake City Quiet Pills mystery. It began with a funeral announcement. On Reddit, a user named Religion Office posted in 2009 that his friend Mill, 0RM, an older veteran known for his blunt personality, had passed away. That by itself wasn't unusual. Reddit has always been a community where people share everything from jokes to obituaries. But then users noticed something strange. Religion Office mentioned that Mill's 0RM had been putting pills in people since World War II, calling them quiet pills. The phrase was odd, unsettling, and nobody could shake the feeling that it meant more than it seemed. Curiosity grew when Redditors traced links embedded in the user's profile. They led to a domain called lakeacidiquitals.com, a site that on the surface hosted nothing more than a crude image board. But hidden within the HTML source code were encrypted messages, strings of text that looked nothing like normal web content. One post included lines such as, "Dispense with delay, immediate assignments, 15 to 20 needed, payment secured." It read like military jargon mixed with job postings. The community froze. Had they stumbled into a covert mercenary job board? Theories spread like wildfire. Some users claimed Lake City Quiet Pills was code for contract killings. Others thought it was a front for arms deals. One thread speculated that quiet pills referred to bullet spills that made people quiet permanently. As always, Redditors started digging deeper. They examined the domain registration, tracked server data, and pieced together a web of usernames connected to the original poster. The more they looked, the more cryptic notes they uncovered with dates and numbers that suspiciously matched global events. One even seemed to line up with the assassination of a political figure overseas. The mix of horror and thrill electrified Reddit. One comment read, "This is the closest I've ever felt to living inside a spy novel." Another quipped, "So basically, Reddit just found Craigslist for James Bond." The story spread beyond the site, hitting tech blogs and news outlets, which only fueled more speculation. Experts weighed in, suggesting that while the messages were bizarre, they might have been elaborate roleplay or trolling. Still, the eerie coincidence of timing and language kept the debate alive. What made this case unforgettable was the way Reddit handled it, as if they'd stumbled onto a global conspiracy. People with backgrounds in cryptography, and military service all chimed in. Some argued the postings were genuine instructions to operatives. Others thought it was the work of an eccentric veteran role-playing his past. Either way, the tension was real. Late-night readers admitted refreshing the threads with sweaty palms, half expecting federal agents to shut it down. For Americans especially, the story hit hard because it blurred the line between internet myth and potential reality. The idea that an ordinary website could hide a mercenary network behind goofy memes was both terrifying and captivating. In the end, the true nature of Lake City Quiet Pills was never fully resolved. The site went offline, leaving behind only screenshots and archived posts. Reddit didn't crack the code this time, but they did something just as powerful. They turned a forgotten corner of the web into a legend. For years after, whenever strange sites popped up, someone would always comment, "Looks like Lake City Quiet Pills all over again." Hash won the Cicada 3301 puzzle if Lake City Quiet Pills felt like a spy thriller. Cicada 3301 was the internet's Da Vinci Code. On January 4th, 2012, an image appeared on 4chan with a simple message. "We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test." It was signed only with a cryptic cicada logo. Almost immediately, Reddit picked it up, and what followed became one of the most mind-bending puzzles in internet history. The first challenge seemed simple. Hidden text within the image led to a URL. But once there, solvers were faced with layers upon layers of cryptography. Kerr codes, prime numbers, ancient literature references, and obscure encryption methods. Redditors on our Cicada and our Unresolved Mysteries dove in headfirst. "This is better than Netflix," one user wrote. Another said, "Either this is the coolest game ever, or I've just signed up for a cult." The deeper they went, the stranger it became. Clues led to physical posters plastered on telephone poles in cities across the United States, Europe, and even Asia. Imagine being a college kid in Virginia, scanning Reddit, then realizing the next clue was taped to a streetlight in your own town. People drove for hours to photograph and upload clues. And the subreddit became a live detective agency buzzing with adrenaline. What shocked everyone was the level of sophistication. The puzzles weren't just riddles. They required deep knowledge of encryption, philosophy, and coding. Some clues even used medieval manuscripts and rare works of poetry. The sheer scale made Redditors wonder. Who could possibly be behind this? Theories abounded. Some said it was a recruitment tool for the NSA or CIA. Others thought it was a hacker collective. Few whispered it might be a cult disguised as a puzzle. Reddit didn't solve Cicada entirely, but they made enormous strides. Together, they cracked codes, built teams across time zones, and pushed further than any one person could. Some individuals were reportedly contacted privately by Cicada after making progress, then vanished from the conversation. That only deepened the mystery. As one user posted, "The scariest part isn't the puzzles, it's what happens when you solve them." Even now, years later, Cicada 3301 remains unsolved at its core.
Ow.
New puzzles appeared in 2013 and 2014 before fading into silence. But the legacy on Reddit is permanent. The case showed the world what a global hive mind could do when obsessed, and it highlighted the razor-thin line between game and reality. As one top comment put it, Reddit turned the internet into a thriller movie, and Cicada wrote the script. So there you have it, 10 insane mysteries cracked open, picked apart, or illuminated by Reddit's unstoppable hive mind. From missing fathers and attic photographs to creepy hums, ghostly websites, and puzzles worthy of Hollywood, these cases prove one thing: detectives don't always wear badges. Sometimes they wear hoodies, sip coffee at 2 a.m., and hit refresh on Reddit. And maybe that is the wildest mystery of all that strangers scattered across the globe can come together to solve the unsolvable. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, share it with your friends who love a good mystery, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into the unbelievable. Drop a comment below telling us which mystery blew your mind the most. We'll be watching. And remember, on the internet, nothing stays hidden forever, not even the secrets you thought were safe.